Hello and welcome to the Extras. I'm Tim Millard, your host, and joining me today is George Feltenstein from the Warner Archive. Hi, George.
Hey there, Tim. Glad to be with you.
Yeah, we've got a lot of titles we haven't reviewed. Most of them came out in April, but a few of them were scheduled maybe for a month before that or so. So there's a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about a few of the ones that have been lingering, and we'll start off with one that I think actually released in March, but we didn't get a chance to get to it, and that is this very fabulous silent film, The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse from 1921. I was blown away, George. This is it's like a silent film opera on epic scale. The music, the scope of the storytelling, the mythology. I didn't know what to expect, so I was just enthralled this whole time. And it's a long film. I thought, hey, I might get a little tired. No, I was absorbed the whole time. And part of that, of course, is this great restoration that adds a lot in terms of the viewership and how well you can get into these films. So that's fabulous. And we should probably talk about that right away, because I know that's a big part of this release.
This was an extraordinarily successful silent film when it came out. It cost over $1 million to make, and the Metro Pictures Corporation was basically, it was sink or swim based on the success of this movie. And the director, Rex Ingram, very, very unknown today, except by certain silent film aficionados. He had extraordinary talent behind the camera, and all of his films are really, really fascinating. But this really resonated with the public. Metro got behind it with a very, very big ad campaign, and it was a massive success. And it also led to establishing Rudolph Valentino as a star. After his famous tango sequence in this movie, his film career took off like dynamite. So the film was very successful at the box office. In its initial run, it played at very prestigious theaters. And of course, in the silent era, when movies were of big substance and opened in big cities, they had live orchestras accompanying them. And this film was so successful that 5 years after its release, when Valentino suddenly died, MGM, which is how Metro merged with Goldwyn Pictures under the aegis of Lowe's Incorporated, and L.B. Mayer came in to run it, and that became MGM. MGM re-released the movie in a shorter form in 1926. So fast forward to the early 90s, Kevin Brownlow and David Gill of Photoplay Productions approached a wonderful gentleman who I consider to be one of the fathers of film preservation, Roger Mayer, no relation to LB. Roger was the president of Turner Entertainment Company, which was ostensibly what MGM was after Ted Turner bought it but couldn't afford to keep it and sold the MGM Lion logo and name back to Kirk Kerkorian, but he kept the library. And so Roger was the president of Turner Entertainment Company after having worked at MGM for 25 years prior. And he was really the father of the nitrate to safety conversion program. Kevin Brownlow and David Gill came to Roger Mayer in 1992 with the proposition to do a photochemical restoration of the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. And fortunately, under Roger's aegis, the nitrate materials that MGM had on the film were protected onto safety film. And Kevin and David took the film elements that were under the care of Turner Entertainment Company and were able to add to it uh, certain shots and pieces of the film that were missing from the master MGM materials. And the end result was that they were able to basically put the whole thing back together or as close as possible. And they recreated the tints and tones and even certain hand colored frames of the film. And they hired Carl Davis to write an original score for this new presentation, which was then put on standard definition videotape in 1993. And I believe it aired likely on TNT because this was right before the start of Turner Classic Movies. So Kevin and David would work with Carl Davis to tour theaters with this film and have live orchestral accompaniment. And as well, there was the ability to see the film on television. As far as a home entertainment release goes, there was a laser disc in 1997 of the video master that Kevin had created that was probably available for less than a year. It was very hard to find. And it was, of course, of its time. So it was standard definition and something that wouldn't look very good today. And so we took on the project of using what work Kevin did. We had a print that he had made that reflected these tints and tones and all the footage that they had reclaimed, and we used the video master that they had created. And that's when the work began here at Warner Brothers Motion Picture Imaging. The colorist Doug Drake worked with one of my colleagues on the mastering team, Anthony Bellotti, for close to 3 years. This was a project of enormous difficulty. And what we also really wanted to do was make sure we were faithful to the work that Kevin and David did on the 1993 iteration. We had the print that they used, we had the video master that they used, and we had our own film materials. So all the film was scanned at 4K, and it was a painstaking process for everybody involved to make this what it turned out to be. And the most important thing for me, because I do have a close friendship with Patrick Stanberry of Photoplay. He works with Kevin now. David Gill passed away several years ago, and Kevin and Patrick have been Photoplay for, I'd say, over 20 years at this point. They've done wonderful things. And I wanted to make sure this had their sign off, their approval, because their name was going to be on it. I wanted to make it clear that this was a new digital presentation based on the photochemical work they did 30 plus years ago. So we sent them in England, we sent them over files that they could view, and they provided us with guidance like, this tint isn't exactly where it should be. It needs to be more lavender, or this needs to be more blue. And the font you should use is this and that. So after nearly 3 years and an exorbitant amount of money, the net result is what you have on the Blu-ray disc. We wanted it to be something that Kevin and Patrick and of course the late David Gill, that honored their work and would have their name on it, as well as the people on our side that did all the reconstructive work, because they were working with multiple film elements, as well as the print that Kevin had made back in 1992, 93. So the enormity of the detail that went into making this exact to what Kevin had specified was painstaking and well worth every minute of it. The response to the disc has been enormously positive, and I'm really hopeful that we'll be able to do more with our silent library. People have been asking us for years for certain films, and some films will be coming through us, some will be coming through uh, partners that we work with, but there will be more silent films coming on disc to home viewers who really want them. So that's the good news. But this is really a very, very special movie uh, that deserves to be presented with this kind of a palatial presentation. We're very proud of it.
Yeah, and you should be, because the story is so fascinating that you just gave about the background. But if you just come to the film not knowing any of that, you just pick up this Blu-ray and you think, what is this? Or you know a little bit about it, and you put it in and you watch it. The sound, as you just spoke of, amazing, and then the visuals are fantastic, and then the storyline. I mean, I wanted to know more about this director, this Irish director Rex Ingram. So I had to do some Google, because I just like, what a visionary! And I know there was source material to this, but what a visionary in terms of what he did at that time with effects, with overlays of these horsemen and this kind of apocryphal feel to it. I thought it was fantastic. And then, of course, the acting with Rudolph Valentino, and then Alice Terry, who plays Marguerite in this film. Uh, all of that together was fascinating. I had to do a little bit more research, because that's part of the film history that's kind of fun when you
Of
discover this
course.
stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then from there, I ended up reading about June Mathis, who is the screenwriter, being well, she worked with Ingram on 4 films, but she was the first female executive at Metro MGM, and the highest paid executive in the 1920s. That's fascinating. So this tremendous talent behind and in front of the camera. No wonder it was such a fabulous picture. But what a great job now bringing this so that modern day fans, whether they be teenagers or whatever age, can watch this and say, "This is just great filmmaking."
Without question, I think, and there are certain directors, D.W. Griffith, Eric von Stroheim, that are known for their great silent films, but Rex Ingram is not the first name that comes to mind, even among cinephiles, unless they're very, very well versed and educated in the silent era. But to have a modern audience rediscover this film or discover this film for the first time with this kind of a presentation, there's still this perception that silent films are rinky tink and they're sped up because they were so poorly exhibited for so many years. We now live in an era where there is a magnificent amount of restoration work and care going on in the presentation of silent films. And many people, they're doing it independently. Some are doing it sponsored by various archives. There are many, many people, like there's a silent film community. It's obviously relatively small, but it's fervent and passionate. And I'm just looking forward to being able to follow For Horsemen with other films of that era. The other thing that's very important is it was an anti-war film,
Right.
and its pacifist message is very important more than 100 years later. And I think that that will only add to its impact.
Right.
And we're very proud of it. We worked on it for so long, and particularly my colleagues, not just Doug, the colorist, and Anthony, who oversaw the mastering, but many other people at MPI did amazing things to be able to recreate those tints and tones that were photochemically on that print, and then make sure that it got Kevin and Patrick's approval. We did it, and I really hope people who may not be particularly interested in the silent era will give this a try, because it's really worth doing.
Yeah, and I highly recommend it to people like myself who are not really knowledgeable about that silent era. I've become more knowledgeable, as I've mentioned to you, George, through the films we talk about that you've released. I've become more knowledgeable. But when I saw this film, I have to say I thought it was on a different level. It's not a
It
comedy;
is.
it's an epic. And
It is.
yeah, it's just it's like when you watch, Ben-Hur. It's like, oh my god, this is on an epic level. Just it doesn't mean you enjoy it more or less than a comedy, but I'm just saying the filmmaking is so impressive to me. And maybe I'm going on too much about it, but I
No.
really thought this was a fantastic movie. And I hope people will check it out who maybe aren't sure what they think about silent films because they're thinking of some kind of a comedy or stunt type of silent film or a western this is not. This is a 1921 version of something on the level of a Cleopatra or Ben-Hur.
And to make a good point, this film was, of course, based on a very best-selling novel of the era, and it was remade in the early '60s by one of my favorite directors, Vincent Minnelli, and it was an incredibly tortured production. They tried to set it during World War II. Um, the remake, it pains me to even say these words, the remake is pretty bad. It has a brilliant musical score by Andre Previn, but it it was a tremendous disappointment to MGM. Um, Thankfully, the original holds up beautifully, and I know that there are some people that have a fondness for the remake. I'm not among them, but since it is a work of one of my favorite directors, it's painful for me to talk about. But boy, that was a troubled production. This was not a troubled production and was looked upon as really one of the benchmarks of the silent era. So I heartily urge people to take the chance, and also to underscore again, just like I said earlier, there is a lot of wonderful work being done by many people to restore silent films and make them accessible to new generations. And I urge people to explore the wonderful world of silent film. It really is important.